Hey guys, today I wanted to wrap up what I read in the month of August, which ended up being 3 books only, but luckily I enjoyed them all quite a bit. So let's go ahead and just get into it. So for those of you who aren't fans of massive international sports events, the Olympics happened in August. The first 2 weeks of August were the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympics, and I watched pretty much every second of it and therefore screwed my reading for the rest of the month. I'm not normally a sports fanatic. Yes, I'm a fan of baseball, and yes, I'm a massive fan of the San Francisco Giants, but I don't feel compelled to watch every single game. I like kind of sticking with the bigger games, the more crucial events, and otherwise I'm not really bothered about keeping up day to day. However, when it comes to the Olympics, I am completely obsessed, and anytime I can be in front of the TV watching, I am. I think this is something I get from my mom because she is also obsessed with watching the Olympics, and actually one of my first sports-related memories ever is watching the Olympics with my mom. So needless to say, I did a lot of Olympics watching those first 2 weeks and not a whole lot of reading, but I did manage to read, like I said, 3 books, and I thought I would go from least favorite to favorite, starting with a 3-star read, which was The Visitor by Maeve Brennan. I personally first heard about Maeve Brennan in the memoir Spinster by Kate Bollock, where Maeve was very much prominently featured as a very important literary influence in the memoirist's life. So I was very intrigued to pick something up by her, and I wanted to pick this one up specifically because it's short. So The Visitor is a short story or novella about a young woman named Anastasia who moves back to Dublin after the death of her mother, and basically goes to live in her grandmother's house. Now, she thinks that she is going to stay kind of forever and always, but her grandmother makes it very clear that they didn't part on good terms, and that Anastasia, although she's welcome in the house, is only welcome as a visitor. However, Anastasia is amazingly kind of positive and hopeful about their relationship, and she really seems to think that the longer she stays, the more her grandmother will just get used to having her around and will forget her supposed sin from the past and just let her stay where she feels is really her home. Other characters include Catherine, the housekeeper, who is the grandmother's constant companion and confidant, and Miss Kilbride, who is a old maid, I guess, who lives in the same general community and feels very attached to Anastasia, even though they aren't maybe the closest of friends. So obviously I don't want to say too much because this is such a short novella that I really feel like I could give away all of the things, but I will say that Maeve Brennan's writing is incredibly easy to get into. Now, I am not super familiar with Irish literature. I haven't read a whole lot from this time period, this kind of Victorian time period, so I was a little concerned that she was gonna kind of go over my head, but it's very accessible. It reads really, really quickly. I actually read this whole thing in about 45 minutes, and it's, you really kind of want to see what happens to Anastasia. She builds tension very, very well. I feel like a lot of the feelings I had towards this were similar to how I felt about Summer by Edith Wharton, especially in the fact that at a certain point, the events at the end of the novella just felt very inevitable, and I kind of got this sense that Anastasia was totally blinded to the reality of her relationships and the reality of her situation. So that was a little disappointing, but generally speaking, if you're looking for an access point to a not very well known short story writer who has really beautiful prose, I would definitely check this out, and again, I gave this one 3 stars. Then I had a 4-star read, and that was The Woman Warrior by Maxine Hong Kingston. Now, this one actually took me forever to read, partially because I started it during the Olympics and didn't actually get a whole lot of reading done, but also because the writing in here is just so breathtakingly beautiful that I ended up reading really slowly, and I ended up, dog-earing and annotating, and just, I'm gonna have to reread this because it's so beautiful. Maxine Hong Kingston is kind of a massive name in the Asian American literary canon. She's kind of synonymous with Amy Tan, especially when it comes to Chinese American female voices. She is a first-generation Chinese American. Her parents were born, raised, and married in China and then emigrated to the US, and she was born here, and this book is kind of, I want to call it a novel because it's very fictional and very mythical in some aspects, but technically it's a memoir. And it's just kind of a blending of memoir and myth and fiction, and it's beautiful. I honestly can't even think of another writer to compare her to. She flows so seamlessly between fact and fiction, and it's just amazing. Aside from its beautiful writing, the story was so relatable. Now, I am, I guess, third generation Chinese American. I am of mixed ethnicity, so my dad is Chinese American, my mom is not. But so many of these moments were relatable to my own life. I could see my own family in the chaos she described. I could see my own grandmother in the very fierce warrior woman of a matriarch. So like I said, I only gave this one 4 stars, and I think the reason I gave this one 4 stars was mainly because it is broken into about 4 different sections, which are all kind of different vignettes from the same general life experiences. And I felt that some of those sections weren't kind of up to par with the others. Particularly, I wasn't a huge fan of the first section, but the kind of 2 middle sections I thought were amazing. So that is why I gave this one 4 stars. This was the book that I read and reviewed for April Magazine this month, so I will link that review in the description. And this was the August pick for the Feminist Orchestra Book Club, which of course is run by Jean. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing her discussion video and hearing everybody else's thoughts on this amazing mix of memoir and myth. Then the last book that I completed during the month was actually a 5-star read, and that was Number 9 Dream by David Mitchell. Now, I picked this one up on the recommendation of Sabrina from Unmanaged Mischief, and I'm just gonna go ahead and link her review down below because I honestly don't know if I could explain this well enough to you guys. This is a story set in Japan about a young man named Eiji Miyake who comes to Tokyo from a very rural, small town in a different prefecture, and is basically looking for his long-lost father years after the death of his twin sister. Part of the reason I decided to pick this one up is that Sabrina described this as the most Murakami novel that she'd ever read by somebody who wasn't Haruki Murakami, and that kind of describes this novel to a T. Eiji very much reminds me of all of Murakami's protagonists in that he is a young man who is seeking something. He doesn't really know what he's seeking. He doesn't really know anything about his father, actually. He just has this urge to find his father, as if that will somehow tell him who he is. This was also my first ever David Mitchell novel, and I could see why people love him so much. He seamlessly blends reality with the character's fantasy, and Eiji was a very unreliable narrator at some points, and there's just a lot going on in here that I was not expecting based on the back. And yeah, I would highly suggest checking this out. I'm sorry I can't articulate my thoughts on this more, but it was just good. I'm speechless. Although I did give this 5 stars, I will say that I wasn't a huge fan of the first chapter. I thought it kind of threw you in the deep end a little bit. The narrative definitely kind of evens out and becomes easier to read as the chapters progress. So maybe the first chapter wasn't the best choice to start off the novel, the style it was told in, but I don't know, maybe I just got used to it. Definitely would recommend this one. And I do have one more book here which I didn't actually complete during August, but I thought I would mention it anyways because it should be read by the time this video goes up, and that is Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeline Tien. Now, this was longlisted for the 2016 Man Booker Prize. I have not checked to see if the shortlist came out and if this was on it or not, so I will just leave it at that, but I'm very much enjoying this so far. This is about a single family in the aftermath of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, told through several different generations, and so far I'm really enjoying it. I'm actually buddy reading this super casually with Sabrina from Unmanaged Mischief, and we're both really liking the writing style, though we're finding it a little hard to kind of keep the characters distinct from one another, so I will definitely report back once I have finished this. And yeah, I will also be reviewing this one on April Magazine, so look out for my review for this one. So this is what I managed to read in the month of August and what I'm currently reading. I had a really good reading month this month. It definitely took me longer to get through these books, but they were kind of worth taking the extra time because they were so good. So I hope you guys had a good reading month in August as well. Please let me know what you read, maybe what your favorite book of the month was, down in the comments. But otherwise, that is all I have for this very rambly video. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you next time. Bye!